What if I told you, the person you're searching for has already crossed your path, already touched your soul, and God has been quietly showing you the signs, but you were too busy to notice? There was a time in my life when love felt like a question with no answer, like I was searching for someone whose face I didn't even know, but whose presence my heart could somehow recognize. I used to wonder, how will I know? How will I know that this person is the one God chose for me? And then one day, I met someone. It didn't feel like fireworks. It didn't feel like a storm. It felt familiar, like I had known their soul long before I knew their name. That's when I realized the first sign: when God shows you your soulmate, it doesn't feel new, it feels like returning home after a long journey. Being with them didn't confuse me. There were no sleepless nights questioning their intentions, no anxiety about where I stood. Instead, there was peace. A calmness that settled deep in my heart. As if God was whispering, "You're safe here." And I understood the second sign: real love, the one guided by God, brings peace, not chaos. Before them, I thought love meant changing yourself, becoming someone else just to be accepted. But with them, I didn't have to pretend. I didn't have to shrink or hide. Instead, I found myself growing, becoming stronger, becoming better, not because they forced me, but because their presence inspired me. That's the third sign: your soulmate doesn't take you away from yourself, they bring you closer to who you're meant to be. There were moments when timing didn't make sense. When life pulled us apart, when circumstances tested us. But somehow, everything kept aligning. Every separation had a purpose. Every return felt written. And I realized, when God is involved, timing isn't random, it's perfect, even when it hurts. That's the fourth sign: divine timing always works behind the scenes. And even when we were apart, miles away, living different lives, something never changed. The connection. It didn't fade. It didn't weaken. It stayed, strong, unshaken, like an invisible thread tying our hearts together. That's when I understood the final sign: when someone is meant for you, distance cannot erase what God has written. So if you're out there searching, wondering if you've already met the one, look back, reflect, feel, because sometimes, your soulmate isn't someone you're going to meet. Sometimes, they're someone God has already placed in your life, waiting for you to finally see what He's been showing you all along. There is something quietly powerful about the kind of connection that doesn't feel like a beginning, but rather like a return. When God shows you your soulmate, the feeling doesn't rush in like a storm demanding attention. Instead, it settles gently, like a memory you can't quite place, yet somehow trust. You meet them, and instead of the awkwardness that usually comes with new encounters, there is ease. Conversations don't feel forced, silence doesn't feel uncomfortable, and their presence doesn't feel like something you have to get used to, it feels like something you've been missing. It's in the way you understand each other without needing too many words. A single glance carries meaning. A small gesture speaks volumes. You don't find yourself over-explaining who you are, because somehow, they already seem to understand the parts of you that others often misunderstand. It's not that everything is perfect, but even the imperfections feel accepted, like they've already made peace with who you are before you even thought to apologize for it. This kind of familiarity doesn't come from time spent together in this life alone. It feels deeper, almost spiritual, as if your souls had already crossed paths long before this moment. You might catch yourself thinking, why does this feel so natural? Or, why do I feel so comfortable being myself here? And the answer isn't something you can logically explain, it's something you feel. There's no pressure to impress, no need to wear a mask. Around them, you are not performing, you are simply being. And in a world where most connections feel like effort, this one feels like rest. You don't leave their presence feeling drained or uncertain, instead, you feel understood, seen, and strangely complete in a way that doesn't take away your individuality. It's also in the way your heart recognizes them before your mind fully catches up. You may try to question it, to analyze it, to make sense of it, but deep inside, there's a quiet certainty that doesn't need validation. It's calm, steady, and unwavering, like a truth that has always been there, waiting for you to notice it before real love enters your life. Confusion often feels like a constant companion. You question words, you overanalyze actions, and you lie awake at night wondering what someone truly feels about you. Your mind becomes crowded with what ifs and maybes, and your heart never fully rests. But when God shows you your soulmate, something shifts in a way that is almost unexplainable. The noise fades, the doubts lose their power, and in their place comes a deep, unshakable peace. It's not that life suddenly becomes perfect or that challenges disappear. Instead, it's the way you feel when you're with them, or even when you simply think about them. There is no constant fear of losing them, no anxiety about where you stand, no need to decode every message or second-guess every moment. Their intentions are clear, not because they constantly reassure you with grand words, but because their actions naturally align with what your heart needs to feel secure. In their presence, your mind slows down. You don't feel the urge to prove your worth or compete for their attention. There is a quiet understanding that you are valued, that you matter, and that you are not just an option in their life. This sense of peace doesn't come from dependency, but from emotional safety. It feels like your heart can finally breathe after being held too tightly by uncertainty for so long. Even during disagreements or difficult moments, the peace doesn't completely disappear. There may be tension, there may be differences, but there is never chaos that threatens to break everything apart. Instead, there is a mutual willingness to understand, to listen, and to protect the connection rather than damage it. You feel safe expressing your thoughts, knowing they won't be used against you or dismissed as unimportant. This kind of peace is not something you have to chase or beg for. It flows naturally, quietly confirming that what you have is not built on insecurity or fear. It's built on something stronger, something steadier, something that feels guided rather than forced. And in that calmness, you begin to realize that love was never meant to feel like a battle, it was always meant to feel like home. Before a true, God-guided connection enters your life, love can sometimes feel like sacrifice in the wrong way. You may find yourself shrinking, adjusting, and slowly letting go of pieces of who you are just to keep someone close. You start to believe that love requires you to become someone else, someone more acceptable, more pleasing, more aligned with another person's expectations. But when God shows you your soulmate, that pattern quietly breaks, and something far more beautiful begins to unfold. Instead of losing yourself, you begin to find yourself more clearly. Their presence doesn't demand change, it inspires growth. You don't feel pressured to become perfect, yet you naturally want to become better, not out of fear of losing them, but out of a genuine desire to rise into the person you were always meant to be. It's a transformation that feels gentle, not forced, meaningful, not exhausting. They see you as you are, your strengths, your flaws, your hidden fears, and instead of trying to reshape you, they accept you. That acceptance becomes the foundation on which your growth stands. You feel safe enough to admit your weaknesses, strong enough to work on them, and supported enough to believe that you don't have to face them alone. Growth in this kind of love is not about fixing what's broken, but about nurturing what's already within you. You begin to notice small changes within yourself. You become more confident in your voice, more secure in your decisions, and more aligned with your values. The doubts that once held you back slowly fade, replaced by a quiet belief in who you are becoming. And the most beautiful part is that this growth doesn't pull you away from your identity, it brings you closer to it. There is no fear that becoming your true self will push them away. In fact, the more you step into your authenticity, the stronger the connection becomes. You don't feel like you're walking on eggshells or constantly trying to meet impossible expectations. Instead, you feel encouraged to stand firm in who you are while still evolving into a better version of yourself. This kind of love doesn't confine you, it expands you. It doesn't limit your light, it helps it shine brighter. And in that space, you realize that the right person will never ask you to disappear in order to be loved. There are moments in life when everything feels out of place, when meetings seem sloughish and connections appear at the wrong time. You may encounter someone when you are not ready, or you may feel ready when they are not. It creates a sense of frustration, as if love is always slightly out of reach, always mistimed. But when God is writing your love story, timing begins to carry a different meaning, one that goes beyond your understanding. When you meet your soulmate, it may not look perfect on the surface. There may be obstacles, distance, responsibilities, or even periods of separation that make you question everything. At times, it can feel like life is pulling you in different directions, testing the strength of what you feel. But even in those moments, there is an invisible sense that something greater is at work, something you cannot control but somehow trust. What makes divine timing different is not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of purpose. Every delay begins to feel meaningful. Every pause carries a lesson. You start to realize that you are both being prepared, shaped individually so that when the time is right, you can come together in a way that is stronger and more complete. It's as if life is aligning the pieces behind the scenes, even when everything in front of you seems uncertain. There are times when you may drift apart, not because the connection is weak, but because growth is necessary. In those moments, instead of breaking completely, the bond remains quietly alive. You may not speak every day, you may not even be part of each other's daily lives, but the connection doesn't disappear. It waits, patiently, for the right moment to return. And when that moment comes, it feels natural, almost effortless. There is no need to force things back together or rebuild from nothing. It's as if you simply continue from where you left off, but with more understanding, more maturity, and more clarity. You begin to see how every delay, every challenge, and every separation had a purpose in shaping what you now have. This alignment doesn't feel slougage anymore. It feels intentional, guided, and deeply rooted in something beyond your control. And in that realization, you start to trust not just the connection, but the timing of it. Distance has a way of revealing the truth about any connection. In many relationships, even a small gap can create doubt, weaken emotions, and slowly fade what once felt strong. When people are not physically present, misunderstandings grow, communication becomes fragile, and the bond begins to feel uncertain. But when God has shown you your soulmate, distance does not break the connection, it quietly proves its depth. There may be miles between you, different routines, different responsibilities, even different phases of life pulling you apart. You may not see each other every day, you may not talk as often as you wish, yet something remains untouched. It's a feeling that doesn't rely on constant presence to survive. Instead, it exists steadily, like a quiet flame that continues to burn even when no one is watching. You don't forget them in their absence. In fact, their presence lingers in the smallest moments of your day. A song reminds you of them, a thought crosses your mind unexpectedly, or a simple memory brings a sense of warmth that feels real, even from afar. It's not an attachment built on habit, but a connection rooted much deeper, one that doesn't need constant reassurance to exist. There is also a sense of trust that grows stronger with distance. You are not consumed by fear of losing them or being replaced. Instead, there is a calm belief that what is meant for you cannot be taken away. This trust allows both of you to live your individual lives while still carrying each other in your hearts. It creates space without creating separation, independence without breaking the bond. Even when communication becomes limited, the understanding doesn't fade. When you reconnect, it doesn't feel awkward or distant. It feels natural, as if no time has passed at all. The emotional closeness remains intact, untouched by the physical space between you. You don't have to start over or rebuild from scratch, because what you share was never dependent on constant interaction. This kind of connection feels unexplainable to others. It goes beyond logic, beyond circumstances, beyond what can be easily understood. And in that quiet, steady bond, you begin to realize that true love is not measured by proximity, but by the strength of the connection that distance could never weaken.